So welcome to 5 ways to guarantee a listing. So this is the second class in our listing series that we're running, which will run through the balance of what month are we in now? November, which is crazy, and into December. So it's a series of 8 different classes. We kicked it off on Tuesday with a panel, 10 ways to get a listing, right? So if you missed that panel, you can catch up. I know that we just posted it on our KW Hudson Valley Group YouTube page. I saw it there yesterday. So if you want to go back and take a look at that, you can. And every week for the next 4 weeks, except for the week of Thanksgiving, we will be doing these classes from on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 12. So today, what we're going to talk about is 5 ways to guarantee a listing. And then just to run down the agenda with you so that you know what you can expect from the rest of the series. On November 17th at 11 a.m., we're going to do how to convert listing objections to closings. I'm going to be teaching that class myself with Amanda Brehm, who's going to do a role playing with me. We're going to talk about how to handle some objections that you get on listing appointments, how to work through them and successfully create a situation where you're getting sellers to work with you. So that's 11/17 at 11 a.m. 11/19, there's going to be a panel, set client expectations for the market of the moment. So we are definitely seeing a seller's market still, I think, across all of the counties that we work in here in the Hudson Valley Group. But I do think that we're seeing a shift in the market if we compared it to what we were first seeing when everybody was let loose out of COVID back in July, right? Like everyone was let loose and it was a little bit of a free for all. And not that it's not still a multiple offer situation market. At least here in Ulster County, where I mainly work and have agents, we're not seeing the same aggressiveness that we saw then. So what that panel is going to talk a little bit about is how do you work with sellers to set the right expectations for them in the market, right? If you have sellers that are reading the New York Times articles and seeing all the posts about houses selling $200,000 over asking and 50 offers and all of these things, well, that's not always going to be this market, right? And sometimes sellers don't catch up. So we are seeing an increase in sellers being upset when you might still be getting them favorable terms and you might still not be meeting their expectations. So we're going to teach a class, and that's going to be a panel with agents that are listing a lot of classes who are going to talk about what they're seeing in the market and how they're setting their sellers' expectations. 11/24, I'm going to be back again teaching a class on marketing your listings. And I'm going to do this in conjunction with Eileen Angel, who is our tech coordinator across all 3 of our market centers. We're going to do a deep dive in how you can market your listings using the tech tools that you have access to here at Keller Williams. So it's nothing that you have to pay for. It's all free marketing that you can use via your website, the Facebook ad, lead accelerator, and the tech package that you have access to here at Keller Williams. 12/1, we're going to do a class on negotiations. 12/3 is going to be a class on with Stephen Gendel, who is our regional tech trainer. So he is like our direct link to KWRI, that's Keller Williams International in Texas. And he meets with them weekly. So he is going to give us a sneak peek behind the scenes of what's upcoming with tech and how we can really use the tech to leverage listings. And then on 12/8, we're going to end the series with how to get 5-star reviews, right? And so 5-star reviews can be very helpful because they can get you more business. And they can also provide social proof for your clients or people that are thinking about maybe using you. So get all of those dates down. They're all on our calendar, our group calendar. Plan to register and attend. I know that each session will be chock full of great information for you. And so today, like I mentioned, what we're going to talk about is 5 ways to guarantee a listing. And so when we talk about the listing series, I think before we can get into the first tactic, what we really have to talk about is why are listings so important, right? What is it about listings that makes us want to run this entire series of classes? So what you should know is that listings are the highest dollar productive activity, taking listings, that you can do as a real estate agent. There is no single activity you will make more money doing, most likely, than going out and taking a listing and selling it. So there's a few reasons for that. Number one, in the same time, this is a stat from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book from Gary Keller. In the same time that you can work with 7 to 8 buyers, the same amount of days, minutes, seconds, you can work with 14 to 15 listings. So almost double the amount of listings you can manage in the same amount of time as buyers. And why is that? Well, you know, if you've worked with buyers, it's a lot, right? You're sending them homes, you're showing them homes. Sometimes you're showing them homes for months. You're writing offers, they're losing offers. You're attending home inspections. Home inspections are going bad. You're attending another home inspection, right? There's a lot more parts and players that come along with buyers. You're talking to a mortgage broker, there's a title issue, there's an appraiser, there's a home inspector. All of these things can suck up a lot of our time and energy as real estate agents. So when you're thinking about the two sides, right, the one that is the most time effective are listings. And most of what you do when you're servicing a listing, aside from when you're at the initial appointment and maybe showing the listing to potential buyers, most of that is done from home, right? You're on your computer, you're marketing things, you're inputting listings, or you're not even inputting the listings because you're using our listing management people. They're doing all of that for you. So you're just going back to take more listings for yourself. So you can be very time leveraged when you take listings. That's one of the reasons why we always say that it's very important. Now, the next thing is that you generally make more money when you list homes, right? So obviously the listing agent sets the commission with the seller, and they also set the commission rate that they're going to offer to a buyer's agent through the MLS. Now, you can certainly, as a buyer's agent, negotiate directly with your clients for an additional commission on top of whatever is offered to you in the MLS. But we know as a general standard that typically in most of the areas where we're selling real estate, the listing agent is getting a higher percentage than the buyer. So it's the same deal, right? And as the buyer's agent, you are even doing more work, right, than the listing agent potentially, but the listing agent makes a little bit more. So that's another reason why focusing on taking listings can be the most powerful part of growing your business. The next reason is that now you have something to market, right? When you have a listing, you now have something that buyers are interested in. Most studies show that that when you're running online advertising, Facebook ads, posts, pay-per-click, whatever it is, the conversion ratios are the highest when you're actually advertising an active listing for sale or an open house or something like that, right? That's why when we talk about running like the ads with our Facebook lead accelerator and command, we recommend you run them off of a listing, because we know that that's something that buyers are interested in enough that they'll give you their contact information in exchange for the information that they want. So taking listings gives you marketing collateral, right? Now you can send out just listed and just sold postcards. You have social media posts. You can do an open house. That's a great way to get more buyers. You have a sign in the yard, right? We let you customize the signs that you have here at Keller Williams. That means it has your name, your cell phone number, your email address right there in that yard of that listing. If you've ever had a neighbor that sold their house, you've probably known who the listing agent was, right? Because every day you have to drive past the sign. You at least know who the brokerage is. And if it's one of our signs, you probably know who the agent is. Do you necessarily know who the buyer's agent was on that deal? Probably not. Usually you don't end up knowing that, right? Unless you maybe in passing in conversation when you meet the agent. But from a general sense, just taking a listing and putting your sign in the yard in itself is a great piece of marketing that you have for yourself. right? You can also, this also lends itself to just listed and just sold emails. I mean, there's the things that you can do in terms of marketing a listing are endless. And that's another reason why it's so important, if you're thinking about which way you want to focus, that you focus on taking listings. They're also good social proof, right? People are always looking, especially I see some of the newer agents on this call. It's always good if you're able to say, I just got my license. And then a couple weeks later, you're like, I just listed this house, right? Like your friends and family are like, wow, Rita actually might be a legitimate real estate agent. So the more that you're able to kind of promote yourself that way, the more social proof that you get with your database, with your friends, with your family. It builds trust with people that you're a reliable resource that they can focus on. And the last reason why we always talk about taking listings is right now, let's be honest, we are in a seller's market. The sellers have the upper hand of the market right now, right? They have the multiple offers to choose from. You list a house, it sells relatively quickly, right? So if we're in a seller's market, then you definitely want to have the listings. You want to be the one controlling the market and having the listings. And also generally, this is just a side note, when we talk about market share, from a general sense, if you're looking to take market share, that generally means listing inventory in a particular area. So if that's something that's important to you, that's what you'd want to keep in mind. So now that we know all of that, then the key becomes to take as many listings as possible, right? And so that's one of the reasons why we're running this entire series. So today I'm going to go over 5 tactics that you can do that essentially the idea here is that you have gotten to a listing appointment, okay? So you've watched the series, the 10 ways to get a listing class from Tuesday. So now you're on a listing appointment and you want to guarantee that that seller is going to agree to sign on the dotted line and agree to list their house for you. So the first tactic number 1, and actually I have a PowerPoint, so I'm just gonna zip here and share my screen. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, you can all see my screen, right? Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Okay. Tactic number 1 is to get into relationship with the seller as quickly as possible. And let me tell you what I mean about that. Many statistics, sales statistics, it's a tough combo for today. Sales statistics say that people work with people that they like. Right? Have you ever walked into like a car dealership or something where somebody is coming at you and all of a sudden you're there because you kind of want to buy something, right? But if they come off too salesy, or they come off like they're pressuring you, or you just are kind of like oil and water personality mixtures, it's not going to go well, right? You're not going to necessarily want to buy from that person or work with that person to complete the sale. So tactic number 1 is to get into relationship with the seller as quickly as possible, because I can give you all of the objection handlers in the world and all of the sales scripts and all of the this and the that you can do. But if a seller doesn't feel like they like you and like they want to do business with you, they're not going to use you. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're also a newly licensed agent, because I know sometimes newly licensed agents think, well, I'm not this top salesperson in this area. I don't sell the most houses in Kingston or Cornwall or where New City. I'm not the top salesperson. So why would anybody list with me? I don't have any experience. And here's what I would say. 9 times out of 10, if the top salesperson walked in and that seller did not resonate with them, didn't like them, didn't feel a connection with them, and then you walked in and they might not have had the flashy sales stats, but you were able to build rapport with them and get into a relationship with them, they'll use you. And I've heard these examples time after time after time from real estate agents of that people are picking to use them because they liked them over the other agents that they were interviewing. So a couple of ways that you can do that. You want to start building rapport with a seller from the first time that you're talking to them. So the first time generally is on the phone, right? So you're on the phone with them and you're talking to them about listing their house. You want to build rapport with them, and the quickest way to build rapport with somebody is by asking a lot of questions. Okay, the person who asking the questions controls the conversation. That is just a tried and true fact. This is a tactic that can work in many different aspects of your real estate business. The person asking the questions controls the conversation, and the person answering the questions feels like they are naturally getting closer to the person asking the questions because they're being allowed to talk about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. They don't even really need to hear your sales stats. I mean, it's interesting to them to some extent, but if it's not relating to them and how it's going to affect them, a lot of times you lose them pretty quickly, right? So a great way is to ask a lot of questions, and the number one question that you really want to figure out when you're on the phone with them is why they're selling their home, okay? You want to get to know why they're selling their home as soon as possible. This is the most important part of this initial phone consultation, because what it's going to do is it's going to help you throughout the entire process. If you understand really what somebody's driving motivation is in either buying a house or selling a house, you can use that to work with them and move them through the process much more smoother than if you don't know that, okay? And this is why. Most people are not selling their house because they just want to put a pile of cash in their pocket, right? Most people are selling a house because they have some sort of life event happening. They have outgrown the house, or they're downsizing, or they're upsizing, or they got a new job and they have to relocate, or they're having a child and they need more space, right? Everybody has some reason typically why they're selling. And by the way, the same goes for buyers too. I'm just going to give a side note. When you're working with buyers, figuring out really what's their driving motivation to buy is very, very important, particularly in this market, because this is not a fun market for buyers, right? We all know that. And so if you don't understand what's important to them about buying a house, they're going to get frustrated with the process because it's a frustrating process for buyers right now. And if you can't bring them back to, okay, so we're in a multiple offer situation and you might have to offer $10,000 more, but for $10,000 more, can you have the house so that when the baby comes in 3 months, you have the baby's room for them, right? Like, those are the types of ways that you can start to create urgency with your clients. And by the way, create a good customer service experience. So you want to do the same thing with sellers, right? This will help you. Understanding why they're moving will also help you when you get on the listing appointment and you're going over comps with them. You're negotiating with them essentially on the listing price, right? Most sellers think their home is worth more than what you might think you can reasonably get for it in the market. If you're able to, as you're negotiating and doing objection handlers with them around pricing, bringing it back to, okay, so remind me though, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you said that you wanted to be in Florida by the time the snow falls, right? And so it's August. And we know it by, even if we get a buyer the first day of your house on the market, you're probably not closing until October or November. Now, at the price that you want to list, I can't guarantee we're going to get a buyer the first day on the market. It might take us 30 or 60 or 90 days to sell, which means you might be in the dead of winter relocating down to Florida. So let me ask you, what's more important? Getting to Florida, like you said, when the first snowfall happens, or potentially testing the market by overpricing it a bit and waiting and seeing, right? And then what are we going to do if the market tells us no, that this isn't a price that's going to work for your house in this market? Because then we start to chase the market, right? You can't really do that though. If without knowing why they're moving, if you just come and say, well, your house is going to sit on the market if I list it at that price, and then it's just going to take forever, this is going to be the response. Okay, well, let it sit. Let's just try it out, right? Like, you haven't connected to their actual driving motivation and why it's important to them to sell. So you want to make sure that you're doing that from the very beginning as you're consulting with them. Okay, so that's tactic number one. I'm going to see if I had anything else in my notes that I wanted to go over. Get to know why. Yep, ask a lot. So you want to ask a lot of questions, build rapport with them, and keep in mind that people work with people that they like. Okay, so now tactic number two, and this will probably be where we spend the bulk of our time, is identifying somebody's DISC profile and then using a mirror and matching techniques in order to get into relationships. So this feeds into number one, because this is a direct strategy to get into relationship with people. And let me tell you what I mean by the DISC profile. So there are 4 main personality traits, a D, an I, an S, and a C. Everybody in the world is a mixture of those 4 traits. Most people are high on 2 of the traits and then lower on 2 other of the traits. And I'm going to go through what each one means and how to work with a seller who falls within each category. So have you ever had a conversation with somebody and you feel like you're living on 2 separate planets? You're like, I don't understand even where this person's coming from, or I don't understand why this person can't just make a decision, or I would just do it this way and it seems clear as day to me, and I really don't understand why this person isn't like seeing the light on the conversation. More than likely, a big part of that is because they are different personality profile from you. So the way that your mind might function and take in information and make decisions and do and process things can be completely different than the way that somebody else might do that. So in order to get into relationship with them and build rapport, have them feel like they like you, right? People like people that seem like them. You want to be able to identify what personality profile they are, and then you can. I'll give you some traits in order to work with them to make them feel comfortable working with you. So the first trait obviously is D, and that stands for dominant. Okay, that's your dominant personality types. These are the people that are generally direct and very to the point. They use what instead of how. So what they are always the people that you're going to hear the end goal from really quickly. It's not going to take much to get their big why out of them, because when you first talk to them, they're going to be like, hey, Allison, I need to sell my house because I need to move to Florida by December, right? Like they're like decisive. They're like, this is the goal. This is the end result. How are you going to back your way into getting me there? Right? They always want to know the bottom line, and they're usually very competitive. What you'll hear from them when you're asking them to describe their house is usually how it compares to other homes, because they're competitive people. So you'll hear like, it's the nicest home on the block. We have more square footage than our neighbors. The house 2 blocks down, I know that one sold for $500,000, but ours is X, Y, and Z, much better than that one. So it's definitely going to be worth more, right? You can probably think of some examples of people that you know that are this high D, like the driving personalities. Usually when you look at their professions, they can be like, sometimes they're like the executive type, or there are a lot of times they're salespeople. Like a lot of people, and that you'll come to find, real estate agents a lot of times are high D personalities and high I, which is the next one that we're going to talk about. So these people really want you to get to the point quickly. So they want you to get to the point quickly. They want you to be concise and talk about the bottom line. Right? So when you recognize that somebody's a D personality, now when you're on the listing appointment, they are not going to want a lot of small talk. Okay. They also are not really going to want you to like sit and talk really slowly to them and like methodically explain in detail your whole selling process. Like you're going to drive them nuts by doing that, right? They're going to be like, no. What's like a 1-page executive summary of what you're going to do? Tell me homes that you've sold. Like if they're competitive, they want to know that they're working with a competitive person. So tell me about homes that you've sold that you've gotten the highest price. You sold really fast. You sold faster than others, blah, 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 right? High D personalities, they'll love the fact that you work for Keller Williams Realty, which is the #1 real estate franchise in the country. They're competitive. They want to work with the best company, right? Like these are facts and figures that you can use with the high D personality. You want to be concise, right? And you want to highlight the results you're going to get them. And you don't want to do a lot of small talk. They're not really looking to get in relationship with people, like warm and fuzzy relationships with people. They're really looking for like a transactional relationship where they're going to find a salesperson that's going to get them really great results, that's going to place them competitively in the market and get the deal done so that they can get to wherever they're going. Okay. And after we go through all first 4 personalities, I'm going to teach you a hack so that you know which personality very quickly somebody might fall within, okay? And what might be their driving personality. Okay, now the I stands for influence. Now, these are the people that you think of as being the life of the party. They are optimistic. They're usually really enthusiastic and persuasive and outgoing. They like light up the room when they walk in. The easiest way is to think of somebody who's a high I personality is like that life of the party type of person. So in order to work with somebody who's a high I personality, you want to build rapport with them. These are people that really feel like they want to be in close relationship with people that they're working with. So in order to draw them in close to you, you do have to like build rapport with them. Key with high I's, these are the people that will love talking about themselves, right? If you get them going or tell it, like sharing stories with them, that's really going to draw them in and make them feel close to you. The high D, you're going to draw them in and make them feel close to you by explaining to them how you're going to get them the bottom line results that they want. You definitely want to make sure with these people that you're following up with them in writing, because sometimes what you'll find with people with that high I personality is that they lack attention to detail, and sometimes they also lack follow through because they're so busy like a social butterfly, floating around, that they don't always follow through. So these are the people that you want to make sure that you are following up with. And then you want to use stories when you're talking to these people. The I stands for, oh, thank you. Thanks, Hazel. Tactic 2. The I stands for influence. So these are like, your influencers. If you think of like an influencer, right, like they're able to bring you in socially and then make a connection with you. You want to use stories with these people as examples because they're very social. So they want to hear examples about maybe how you've helped a family in the past, or you threw a big open house and you had like 50 people come through and it was this big party and it got all these offers and it was really great, right? That's how you can talk with a high I and really draw them in. Okay, so now this isn't a hard and fast rule, but it is a general, I would say it's probably the majority. So the majority of real estate agents are going to probably be high D and high I personality. So if some of those traits I described sounded like you, right? Like you're a driver, you want to be a top producer in the market, you love networking events, you got into real estate because you like helping people, you want to be around, you want to be out doing things, right? You might fall into these 2 categories. Now, while a lot of us will fall into these categories, the vast majority of the population will be S's and C's. Like 80% of the population are S's and C's. Okay, so it's very important when you start to really learn about this is that you keep in mind that while you might be, if you're a high D personality and you're to the point and you go on to a listing appointment and you're like driving at the bottom line and talking and doing all of these things and being persuasive and energetic and all of these things. For the S and the C personalities, which are more of the stable, steady, quieter personalities, you're going to be like a lot for them, for many of them. They're going to be totally like, what just happened? Like there's a tornado in my house right now and I need to find a sense of calm. So you have to make sure that as you're going on the listing appointment, that when we start to go over the S and the C, if you feel like you're more of an I and D personality, that you take that into consideration when you're working with the other 2 personality types, so that you can make sure that you're mirroring and matching their behavior styles. So for somebody that's an S personality, the S stands for steady or stable. So these are people that are very stable, they're predictable. They're usually the shyer personalities. They're very loyal, they're even-tempered, they're predictable. These are the people that sometimes are very slow to make a decision, right? Somebody that's a high D or high I, they're usually very decisive people. You lay out kind of the options and they're fast moving and they're like, all right, list the house for $450, get it on the market tomorrow, let's go, right? somebody that's an S personality, if that's how you come at them, they are going to be like on a level 10 overload because they need a little bit more time to make a decision. You might have seen people's, I think a good example is like when you're on a home inspection, right? So you go to a home inspection, and some buyers, when you leave the home inspection, they're like, we need to ask for a ba 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 ba. And if they can do that, we're cool. Let's move forward. I'm going to get my contract going right now. And then you have some buyers that are like, we need to wait for the report to come back, and then we're going to read the report, and then we're going to probably read the report again, and then we're going to ask a million questions to the sellers, right? Like, have you had buyers that come up with question after question after question of every little nitty gritty detail about the house and a lot of information that they want? These are people that are probably either an S or a C personality. That's just their personality type. None of this is good or bad or right or wrong. It's just the way that their brain works to make decisions. So with these people, you have to be really patient, right? You might have to, if you're somebody that's a high I personality or a high D personality, you might need to tone down your voice, right? Like the speed of your voice, the way that you're presenting things to them. You definitely they can't feel like you're pressuring them into making a decision. You'll definitely lose them at that point. You also should anticipate that with somebody that's an S personality, that you're going to provide answers to the how questions, right? So like the high D's want to know what are the results you can get. The high S's, they want to know how does the septic system work? How often do I need to do a water test? How does there's like what type of furnace is this? How does the oil get from the oil to the to the radiators, right? Like they want to know all of the inner workings of a house. They want to know how the market's going. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. Sometimes if you're a high D or high I, that can be sometimes it can be, I'll just say it, annoying, because you're like, stop asking the questions, just buy the house. And they're like, no, we need to get all of this information. So you want to be prepared to ask how questions. You want to give them time to adapt, to change, or make a decision, right? You don't want to rush them. And with the high S personality, what works well with them is examples of what will happen next. Like these are usually people that like systems and processes. Like if you hand them a pre-listing packet. If you send out a pre-listing packet before you go on a listing appointment, these are the people that will read it from first page to last page and have a list of questions for you on all of the information, and they'll refer back to that through the process. They're the people that will ask you on the listing appointment, okay, so what's the next step? What's going to happen after that? They want to understand the process of things so that they can understand how everything fits together to get them to the end goal. So that's your S personality. Your C is your conscientious. So these are your detail-oriented, very, very precise people. Okay, these people are also interested in systems and processes, and they oh no, I'm still on this one, sorry. Systems and processes, and they like numbers, stats, figures, spreadsheets. They like calculations. They're the home buyers that come to the home inspection and measure every square inch of the house to see like what is the distance from here, from here to here, from there to there. They're the ones that show up and take like very copious notes and ask questions like what's the square footage of the house. They want to know dollars and cents on things. These are the people that are really going to use data to back up and help them make decisions. So with somebody that's a C personality, you want to make sure that when you go on the listing appointment, that you're really prepared to go over with them a CMA, right? So if you're listing their house, you want to make sure that you know that CMA inside or out, because what they're going to really focus in on is the logistics of where their house fits in the market based on others, based on facts. So you're going to want to know like days on market in the neighborhood, what the neighbor's home sold, price per square footage, list price to sell price ratio, right? All of that information is going to be really important to them in order to ultimately, right, the whole idea of this class is to guarantee a listing. So ultimately what you're looking to do is to get these people to make a decision to list with you. right? So if you're working with somebody that's a high C, they're not going to ultimately sign on the dotted line if they don't feel like they have all the information that they need. So usually the information that they're going to need are the stats and the figures, right? Somebody that is an S is going to want to know the process. They want to be confident that you can walk them through the process from start to stop. Somebody that's an I is probably going to want to make sure that their house is going to get exposure, that they're getting the most exposure, the most eyes on their home, that you're somebody that is well networked in the area, is maybe like one of the top real estate agents, just because that's kind of how their minds work a little bit. And then somebody that's a D is going to want to know how you're going to get their home sold competitively, quickly, usually in the quickest amount of time for the most amount of money. That's what's going to be most important to them. So now you might be wondering, okay, well, that's great. And now what am I supposed to do with this information? Like, how do I figure out who's what? So what you want to do is the easiest way that I've come to learn to figure out what personality profile somebody might have is when you're on the phone with them setting the listing appointment, ask them to describe their home to you. Okay, which you're going to do anyway. You should do at least anyway if you're doing a good phone consultation. And this is likely what you're going to hear from them. Hang on, I'm just going to check the chat. I'm working with the C for almost 4 weeks now, right? The S's and the C's are the ones that will sometimes take a lot longer to make a decision, and usually need to see like all of the facts before they'll move forward. So it might be the people that unfortunately like get outbid on something 1 or 2 times before they become competitive in the market, because they're not really trusting that this is the market, or that they have to write competitive offers. Okay, so when you ask somebody, when you're on the phone with them and you say to them, okay, can you please describe your house for me? This is what you're going to hear from each one of the personality types. So somebody that's a high D is likely going to start to tell you how their home is better than something, either their neighbors, their friends, the other homes that they know that are similar to theirs. You're going to hear that, and you're also going to hear how much money they've put into the house, how, high-end things. They'll usually start with like, oh, well, we have a $40,000 sound system that's installed that's top of the line, right? Or our appliance packages cost us, $100,000, and they're the best you can get, right? These people are going to describe their home in terms of how competitive it is, and they're also not going to tell you really anything about like the logistics. It's going to be really like cut and dry. What are the top and bottom things about their house? I'm just going to check the chat again. Oh my gosh, sometimes Zoom. Okay, here we go. What's the C again? Let's wait for a minute. So C is conscientious. And Sasha, that's a great question. So I actually have a cheat sheet that everybody that attended today's class will get. I'll email it to you this afternoon, and it goes through exactly what I went through, what each personality type is, and how you want to make sure, things that you want to make sure you do and don't do with each one. Okay, so the D personality is going to be the one that is that explains their house in terms of how great it is as compared to other people. The I personality is usually going to explain their house by the way that they entertain in it, right? These are our social butterflies. So they're going to come in and be like, oh, we have a huge dining room that fits 12 people and is perfect for Thanksgiving dinners. Or we have the best 4th of July parties because we are on 6 acres and it's great. Or, the kids run around in the backyard all day. The pool's great for summer barbecues. You're going to start to hear from them about how they use the home, how they entertain in it. That's how they, that's generally how they think of their home in those terms. Somebody that's an S personality is likely going to tell you all of the like warm and fuzzy features about their house. So you might hear from them that the the house has been such a loving place for my family to raise a family. A lot of times you'll hear about, not necessarily like big celebrations, but you'll hear about how they really lived within the house. So you might hear as you're touring through the house or on the phone, like, you know, we have a swing set in the back. My children are grown now, but when they were little, they would play on that for 8 hours. Or the home office was really great, you know, because during COVID, I was able to really work in there and be home for my kids that were homeschooling. Or, you know, you'll hear different ways that they've used the house. Not necessarily like the logistics of the house or entertaining in the house. It will be more about like the feelings that they've felt while living in the house, or the experiences that they've had just on a day-to-day basis living in the house. And then the C personality, for them, you're probably not going to hear anything outside of it's a raised ranch, it's 3 bedrooms, there's 2 bathrooms, we have half an acre of land, it's fenced in the back, and it's well and septic. Like the C personalities, they're not gonna give you any color commentary, like how they entertained or what each room was used for. These are the people that like facts and figures, and that's how they're gonna describe their house, right? They might have, if you actually ask them questions about it, I'm sure they could tell you about how they entertained or did different things in the home. But when they hear describe their house, their brain goes to, she wants to know, because what I would want to know are the facts and figures. That must be what she wants to know too, right? And so just asking that simple question can be a great way to understand people's disc profiles right away, right? And then you know when you're walking into the listing presentation how to tailor your presentation accordingly to make sure that you're putting them into relationship with you, and that they're liking you, right? Deciding to work with you because they like you. Okay, any questions on anything we've gone over so far before we go over into the next tactic? No, we're doing good? All right. So, okay, thanks, Brian. All right, tactic 3. This is the key. You want to make sure when you get on a listing appointment to guarantee the listing, you have to know the market better than these sellers do. Okay, with the advent of Zillow and Realtor.com and Trulia, it is very easy for people to track what their home is worth, right? With their estimate, whether or not it's accurate, it's usually not. It's very easy for people to track what homes are selling for in their neighborhood. If you're doing what we always tell you to do, which is taking your database, putting them into commands, turning them onto a neighborhood nurture, either monthly or bi-monthly, they're also getting emails from you either once a month or twice a month, telling them what's going on in their market, right? In their neighborhood. And if they're opening them, they know what's going on in their neighborhood. This is what sellers are most interested in. Most sellers don't care about much else except for what's going on in their neighborhood. That's why the first smart plan we came out with was the Neighborhood Nurture Smart Plan. Because honestly, when they started to ask home buyers and sellers, like what information would be valuable for you to receive from a real estate agent, it wasn't Thanksgiving recipes or tips for snow blowing your yard or whatever, you know, articles that a lot of times real estate agents send out. They were like, no, we want them to tell us what homes are on the market and what my house is worth, right? Most people, their biggest asset is their home, so they watch the market. So you need to know the market inside and out and research their home extensively beforehand. So here's a few tips to do that. Home sellers will definitely know the market. And so what you want to do after you set the listing appointment is to go onto the MLS and look what's sold in their neighborhood over the past year, right? That way you can get an idea. Take a look at it. You might know if you're looking at the market every day. So this is a side note. Everybody should be looking at the hot sheet every single day if you're a serious real estate agent, right? You should be opening the MLS, looking at new listings, what's gone under contract, and what's sold. And when you look at what's sold, look at the list price and then the sale price. That's how you learn the market. Easiest way. So I would say go into the neighborhood, right? And look what's sold in the past year. You also want to know for the area, what are the average days on market? What's the average sales price? And what's the average list price to sale price ratio, right? These are things that even if you're a newer agent, you don't have to have experience in order to pull those stats up. You have access to that because you have access to the MLS. And these are the types of stats and things that you can drop in on a listing appointment that will automatically help them place you as an authority for selling homes. And then they'll start to trust you, right? Trust the information that you're giving to them. And especially if you're talking to somebody that's a C, these are going to be questions that they ask anyway. Or if you don't answer, they're not going to feel like you've closed the loop to be able to ask them to list their home with you. Make sure when you're pulling the CMA that you're looking at the comps and you're really kind of researching them so that when you get to the CMA portion of the listing presentation, you are able to talk to them knowledgeably about the different comps that you've pulled. Okay, so now the next thing that you want to do is look up, okay, this is a trick. This is a trick that I learned when I was a newly licensed agent, that I still do today. When I would set a listing appointment and then I would go and look up the MLS information to see if the house was previously listed. Sometimes it has been, like it either expired or you could find the old listing from when the people bought the listing, right? So you want to make sure that you go into the MLS and you look and see what the deal is with the house. Now, this is where it comes in, especially if you're a newer agent. You can find certain things that might help you that you wouldn't automatically know because you just are working on getting all the experience. And I'll give you an exact example. One of the first listing presentations I went on, I pulled up the old listing in the MLS and it said in there that there was bamboo flooring at the house. Now, I didn't know what bamboo flooring, now I do, but at the time I didn't know what bamboo flooring was. I could not recognize bamboo flooring. I knew nothing about that. But now I knew because I had done my little research and I knew about this, right? I've also seen things like the roof is 5 years old or 10 years old, or the furnace is brand new, right? This gives you little pieces of information that now when you're in the house, right, when you go on a listing appointment, first thing you're going to do is you're going to tour around the house. That's when you can drop in this information and seem like an expert, right? So what did I do when I walked on this listing appointment? Oh my God, these are beautiful floors. These are bamboo flooring, aren't they? Oh, they're so lovely, right? I wouldn't have known to say that if I didn't look up from the MLS. You can, when you walk in, you can walk around. Okay, so tell me about the roof. The roof only looks about 5 years old, right? All of these things, again, is going to place you as an authority to these sellers so that you're drawing them in closer to you. And they're like, okay, I got all of this figured out. And this person knows what she's talking about. Okay. You can also find information from the Realist Tax Program, right, which is accessed through the MLS. You can also go into, like, if you're in Ulster County, up by me, you can go into the Ulster County Information Services and pull up information there. So you want to do a good amount of research on the house beforehand, before you get on the information. So that's the way that you can know the market better than they do. Okay, now tactic number 4 is knowing your elevator pitch and your unique selling proposition. So that's what makes you stand out in the market from other real estate agents. Okay, so this is something you might have to sit with and develop. If you're an experienced agent, it might be your sales stats. It might be the percentage of houses that you list in a neighborhood. It could be a particular marketing strategy that you use to get homes sold quickly, right, that you're able to talk about. If you're a newer agent and you don't quite have that experience under your belt, you can use your transferable skills. We all have transferable skills, right? We're selling real estate isn't like some random offset profession. It's a sales job, right? So many of us have transferable skills from whatever profession we came from that we can talk about. Before I sold real estate, I was a paralegal. And so my first couple listing appointments, what I would say to sellers was, so before starting to sell real estate, I worked in a real estate-based law firm in the litigation department. And so what that means for you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is that I can really help you avoid certain things that other real estate agents might not be aware of. That's what gives me a unique proposition. I also understand from the legal side of things how real estate transactions get done, so I can make sure that that becomes a smooth process, right? So that was something that I used, and you might use something the same or different. You also want to be able to explain what makes you different relatively quickly, right, in an elevator pitch. You could even come up with 4 elevator pitches, one for each personality type. And once you identify what that person might be, that's your unique selling proposition on a listing appointment. They're not really going to care about much else, right? However their brain works, their brain works. Also, if you're new, this is another thing. Use the power of the office that you work with behind you, right? So you use the fact that you work for the #1 real estate company, franchise company in the country to work on your behalf, right? And so this is the way that I would do that. I would say, the beginning of the presentation, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, so as you might know, I work for Keller Williams Realty. What you might not know is that Keller Williams is the #1 real estate franchise in the country. We're #1 in closed units, closed volume, and agent count. What that means is that there's more Keller Williams agents selling more real estate than any other brand in the country. Now, to you, that probably means nothing, and I know that, but let me tell you why that puts you at a unique advantage. Because we have 180,000 Keller Williams agents in this country, we've created an entire interconnected network between all of us. It's all part of this back office system that we have access to. And so what happens is that I have a network of realtors all across the country that when they have a client, a buyer that's coming to move to our area, they always start with Keller Williams agents. Now, this is a side note, I had the unique benefit of being one of the first Keller Williams agents in Ulster County. So I would say I'm one of the only Keller Williams agents here in Ulster County. And so what that means is any Keller Williams agent that has an agent moving over here is going to go into our referral system and find somebody, right? Which means that I get referrals from agents all across the country. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let me ask you, whose listings, what houses do you think that I show them first? I show them my listings, right? So when you work with a Keller Williams agent, you have this big network of agents that are going to work on your behalf to help get your home sold. So use that, use our presence we have the largest footprint of any real estate franchise in the Hudson Valley. We have agents from like Rockland, obviously, New Jersey, we have agents in Jersey, all the way up past Albany. I have agents in my office working past Albany, right? We have a huge footprint on both sides of the Hudson River, just in our Hudson Valley group of offices. Use that to your advantage. A lot of times we put out what's called the language of real estate reports, which shows that generally we outpace the market on many, many metrics. If you need help in getting these numbers, ask the MCA in your office. It's either Lisa, Ray in New City, Lisa here in my office in North, or Erin is the interim best person to ask in Middletown. So ask them for the language of real estate numbers. That will show how our office generally outpaces the board as a whole. That's a great piece to use, even if you're not a new agent. If you're a new agent, use the local office, use Keller Williams as your unique selling proposition. If you're more experienced, still use it, and then also toss in maybe some of the sales stats, other things. Okay, so now tactic 5, and this one should be self-explanatory, but sometimes it's not, right? Tactic 5 is to don't be afraid to close for the deal, right? Like, we are salespeople. This is a sales business. I hope and pray I'm not the first person breaking this to you. This is a sales business, right? In order to close for the deal, and when we talk about closing for the deal, right, the ultimate goal of our class today was to get people to agree to work with you. You have to ask them for the business. There's so many times that I talk to agents and they say, well, if they wanted to use me, they would just let me know. Or how about this one? I called everybody that I know in my phone book. I got 0 business from it. And I say, okay, how many of them did you ask who they know that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Well, I didn't ask that specifically, but they know that I sell real estate. So they would do it if they came across. No, they won't. They sure won't. And it's not because people don't want to give you business. There is a very weird psychological thing that I don't exactly know why it works this way, but people, if you do not ask them, will not do it, even if they would like to do it, even if they have every intention of the world and love you and want to help you grow your business. If you don't specifically tell them how to help you, or tell them how to work with you, or tell them what the next deal is, like close them for these things, they're not going to do it, and you're going to end up with a bunch of missed opportunities. So here's a couple ways that will help you close people, right? So now you've gone on a listing appointment, right? Beforehand, you've talked to them on the phone to set the listing appointment. You've built rapport with them. You've figured out what their big why is and why they're selling their home. Then you've gone on the listing appointment. You've mirror and matched their personality type. You've talked their language to them. You've gotten into relationship with the seller. And then you're able to set yourself apart from other agents in the competition by knowing the market and knowing your unique selling proposition. So now you need to work on closing the deal, getting them to sign the listing paperwork, agree to work with you. Okay, so the first tactic there is it's called future pacing, okay? You want to tell people what the next steps are. Dangle something in front of them that they want, right? So when I'm on a listing appointment, what I say is, okay, so the next step is that I'm going to have my professional photographer come in and take pictures. I can get him in as soon as Thursday. Would that work for your schedule? All we have to do then is get the listing agreement signed, and I'm going to text him right now while we're sitting here to get it scheduled. Okay, future pace people. Okay, so if you agree to work with me today, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out the coming soon information to my database like we discussed. I'm going to send you a mock-up of the postcards that's going to go out to all your neighbors, letting them know that your house is for sale. And I'm going to start working on executing my open house strategy so that if we're able to list your house a week from today, once we get the pictures back, then I'm going to do an open house plan. So can I go ahead and get started with all of that? All we'd have to do then is work on the listing paperwork, and then I'll work on that on my end. Right? Dangle something that they want, some value that you gave them, and then ask them, right, to sign the paperwork. Another closing tactic is a trial close. So this is when as you're speaking to people, you want them to answer, you want to ask questions that they will answer yes to as you're talking to them, okay? So as you're say you're sitting at someone's kitchen table, you're going through your home marketing strategy, what you might say is, can you see how my marketing would get your home in front of a lot of buyers? They're going to say yes, right? Could you see how pricing your home, how professional photography is important and will help me market your home online? Yes. Do you agree that at that price, we would find a buyer for your house quickly? Yes, right? Those types of things. It's this weird psychological thing where if people are in the process of saying yes, and they've said yes like subconsciously a few times, ultimately then when you go, okay, so it sounds like from all of these things that I outlined, it sounds like I can get your home sold quick and for the highest price. So then the next step so that I can get my photographer started and blah, 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 would be to sign the listing paperwork so that we can get started. Okay. Now, another one is isolating objections, okay? So this is where you might say to somebody, is there anything else that would keep you from agreeing to, and if you've taken bold, you've probably learned this tactic where you pause before whatever you're asking them to do happens. And then with a downward swing in your tone, list with me, pause today. Is there anything else that would keep you from listing with me today, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? And then they might say, well, we're interviewing other agents. We have another interview with an agent. Okay, that's no problem. When is that interview taking place? Is there anything that you are hoping to hear from me today that you didn't hear that you're hoping to hear from the next agent that walks into the door? Right? And you might figure out that there's some things that you just didn't touch on that you can go back and work on. And then once you do that, again, is there anything, okay, so now that we talked about that, is there anything else that would keep you from listing with me today? And then it might be the next thing, right? Handle them one by one. That way, by the end of it, you will get to the point where they're like, no, because it's just, no, you've handled all of the things rattling around in my brain. Okay. So if there's nothing else that would keep you from agreeing to list with me today, then can I go ahead and get my photographer scheduled, the postcards, the open house, Can I get that started? All we would have to do here is get the listing paperwork signed. Okay. These are all simple ways to close people that isn't super salesy. or pressuring, but really is just about like asking questions, letting people talk, understanding how people work, and going from there. So are there any questions? Because I want to be mindful of our time. Are there any questions that I can answer? I'm going to go back through the chat because I don't. Thanks, Diana. Diana gets a gold star today because she said this is the best class she's ever taken. Hot sheet, CMA, how many months out? Usually no more than 6, although in this market, I would say like 3 to 4 because the market has shifted since COVID. Okay, any other questions? All right, you're all going to receive an email from me that has all of the disc profiles on them, okay? It's Thursday, so you have off now until Tuesday, and I expect to see you all back here on Tuesday at 11, where I'm going to talk more about objection handling. We're going to probably end up role playing like a live listing appointment. So some of these things that I mentioned today, I will go more in depth about with Amanda Brem on Tuesday. And thanks for coming today, guys, and take some of these strategies and go take more listings for yourselves, okay? Okay, let me stop the share. All right, bye.